Okay, awesome.
Have fun, Andrew. Good seeing you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Take care.
You could, if you could send that to both of us, that'd be great. No, look, technology is a different field, right? If you're going to be a lawyer, you have to have a law degree. You want to be a physicist, you have to have a physics degree, right? You want to do startup stuff, you don't necessarily have to have an MBA. Very, very helpful. I wish more people did every day, but you don't have to. It's definitely an environment that's about producing results, right? And those results could be, as a startup founder, you're taking investor money and you're returning more money to them. It could be product success with something at the company. There's 100 different ways that you could drive value into an organization and be rewarded for that value, either with promotion or advancement or opportunity. So it's never, to say that it's never impacted me is wrong. My career would be much further if I had a degree, I'm sure. For the early part, I'd say the first 15 years of my career, easy. I fought against, you don't have a degree, you don't have this, you don't have that, or you've never done that, like over and over and over. So, it's definitely had a negative impact, the lack of education on my career. But also it's worked out pretty well. So we're all good over here. But it's really about producing value, right? Wherever you go in your career, producing value, that's what's going to advance you. That's what's gonna get you the reputation, the credibility, and the opportunities that you might be seeking.
Yeah, I think that's a very great answer. I think I share a lot of that sentiment, is what I'm finding out lately with, I think, seeing the value in tech transfer within various industries. And there's a lot more to learning how to apply technologies, and I think kind of wrap business models around them to make them useful for people rather than knowing everything about how it works, right? I think it's also very valuable to understand.
Well, knowing how it works is important too, right? But your amount of knowledge on a product, it should be directly proportional to how what you're affecting about that product, right? So like, if you're talking about Strangeworks and a physics startup, what Andrew does, what Cesar do, that's the most important, right? Translating that physics knowledge to the developers. What the developer's doing is trying to package that up. So they don't need to know necessarily everything about the physics part of it. They do need to know everything about like how they're hosting the infrastructure, where it's going, what about the fault tolerance, the billing, and then, of course, my job has went from being a developer to more and more and more high level stuff, right? My main responsibility is going out and raising the money and evangelizing the company and helping drive opportunities to Andrew that he can take his partners, or Steve that he can pull in his customers, or whatever the case might be. So, depends on it. You need to know your role, right? Like 100%.
Right. And I think, there's a lot of like top industry leaders, like you heard from Amazon the other day, some speakers from IBM, and doing a lot of prominent research within quantum, and having, like, there's Microsoft and I think Amazon that have these open hardware ecosystems with quantum computing for open access, right? And I think Strangeworks has a very similar model, but what makes you a differentiator compared to these other, I think, industry leaders?
Well, well, I mean, we technically started before them doing that. So I see it more as the big guys looking for innovation and trying to go on to it. None of us have made any stupendous progress. Quantum is hard. So the great news is that, before I get to differentiation, let's talk about the playing field. As a startup, and Amazon doesn't scare me, because with all of their money and all of their developers and everything, quantum is still hard. People still don't know about it. And there's still like this kind of prerequisite environment that hasn't happened yet. So the playing field's very even, whether you're an IBM or Microsoft or Amazon or D-Wave or Alibaba, it doesn't matter. So that's kind of nice that we can play on that field. As far as what differentiates us, we've built a lot of things that they haven't around community, around other things, and that maybe they don't need to build. And maybe we'll eventually find, belong better somewhere else. I think quantum right now is still in a very exploratory, very, very nascent stage. I mean, it's still the, NISQ era, right? We've got noisy machines. We don't have thousands of qubits, and we're heading there. But, this is a really interesting time to be in quantum as a startup, because the differentiation, isn't that important to customers. So, if you went down the points, okay, what do you have that Amazon doesn't? Right now, we're the only place you can get IBM quantum computers outside of IBM. They're not available on AWS, right? So there's like things like that make us different. We're machine types or stuff, or maybe we have some that aren't available to them. We're about to do a series of integrations that will make us, very different than them in some ways. But you have to understand that when you're at a startup, how you differentiate yourself, there's a product differentiation, there's a brand differentiation, and there's a business differentiation, right? So on the business side, we're pretty fast, we're pretty light, we're a startup, we're very easy to work with. We don't make a quantum computer, and we don't want to make one, whereas Amazon clearly has ambitions to make one. IBM already is. Microsoft has ambitions to make one. So, we're a little bit more of a safe harbor for all of the enterprises want to use quantum, because we don't have a horse in the computing race. We use them all, right? And we'll add as many as we can. And so sometimes you get kind of brand-wise a credibility that comes with that. They don't have to worry about if we have a secret plan to learn what they're doing and we're going to go build a machine. Just don't build one, right? And then on the tech side, I feel like we have the best dev team. We're much more developer centric. And while that's meant wandering around in the woods, as it's very physics dominated now, you're starting to see the industry move from advanced research to applied research, right? So not trying to find things out, but trying to put things into products that we have already found out and discovered and agreed on. As you make that transition, I think a company like Strangeworks is very, very well positioned in the market.
I think, sorry, industry leaders was the wrong word to use. I just meant, obviously, like just larger organizations in general that span various industries, but I think that was a really valuable answer. I guess personally to you, what attracted you to quantum technology and made you want to start a new kind of company within this industry?
Well, it was easy. As an entrepreneur, I try to always know what my next 2 or 3 companies would be. And when we had sold our last company to Goldman Sachs, it was clear. Clearly I'm Goldman material, right? So we all knew I was going to have a long storied career there. And I say that sarcastically. They were going to kick me out at the first chance, and I was going to leave. And we all knew it. It was fine. There was no animosity. That was the plan. I built a company. You buy the company. I'm going to leave and build another company. Maybe you'll buy it or somebody else will. So it was a great experience. But I had down a choice of basically biohacking, robotics, or quantum. 3 things that I'd read about in science fiction novels and thought about and fantasized about and done a little bit of checking into it. And then in the process of making that decision, I thought about the path of our first startups. So the first startup was for fun and profit. We killed it. It was all mobile apps. We were part of the iPhone dev camp. So a week after the iPhone was released, we saw the opportunity to build apps, even though Jobs was saying there wouldn't be any. We got 400 people together at Adobe's offices in San Francisco and hacked on iPhones all weekend long, built about 80 apps. And then I said, okay, well, wait, I'm going to wait till everybody else tries to build apps, and then we'll start a company. So in 2009, about November, we started Chaotic Moon. Well, launched it at South by in February, and that company took off, and it was just money on top of money on top of money. It had no problem with branding or marketing or customers. It just it was magic. But it was all fun and profit. A new game on an iPhone app, it's not going to help, with poverty. The Starbucks app isn't going to help, with homelessness, whatever it was. It was just fun and profit. So the second company was in finance. We started that because we wanted to actually help people. So we focused on America. We focused on the fact that the average American citizen has a $400 expense. They're insolvent. And so we said, well, how can we address that retirement savings so that people don't think they're throwing the money over a wall? They can easily get that money back. And that worked out well. We sold it to Goldman. So for the third one, I wanted to continue going that. So I wanted something that was a very long term, that was very early on, that we could be a part of kind of making an industry. And I looked at it logically. And I said, well, look, Boston Dynamics has been sold 5 or 6 times. Robots are kind of here in like automotive and manufacturing some stuff, but not really where I need them for that idea. And biohacking is about to get insane regulations on it, with everything going on from CRISPR to all the people, putting magnets in their fingers or whatever. And I thought, well, I just did a regulated business in finance. I kind of want to avoid regulation because it's hard and it's expensive and it's a burden on a startup. And so quantum represented this amazing opportunity had met Andrew in Tokyo, Japan at the Adiabatic Quantum Conference, and I was like, hey, like here's a physicist I can work with and bring in the company. Kind of already had the dev team, and we started. That became kind of how I wanted to do that. Now, I had tried to start an open source project with the Linux Foundation months prior to that, but a lot of the quantum people didn't want to get along and collaborate on it. So I thought, well, I'm going to do quantum. I'm also going to do this idea that I wanted everybody to share in, but we'll just go and do it ourselves.
It's really interesting. Yeah, I think it's I think it's cool that you're always kind of scoping out like multiple technologies at a time.
It's super important. It's super important if you really want to stay ahead.
Does anybody else have any questions at the moment? Feel free to just kind of chime in.
Yeah, I had a quick question. I was curious. So you said it's more like quantum is going towards applied research. I was just curious. What does Strangeworks think that the newest applications of quantum are going to be? I see a lot of stuff that say finance, chemistry, machine learning, some crazier stuff beyond that. I was just curious if you guys had an idea of like what the first kind of application
I don't think anybody does. I want Andrew to chime on this, but I'm approaching it differently. These are just compute targets. So as a software developer, they're just a different tool for a different type of calculation. What does that calculation look like? I think it's where the evaluation times soar, and a supercomputer would take hundreds or thousands of years. And maybe that's, NP plus hard or BQP or some variant of some hard mathematical construct. However, to me, they're just another computer. And one of the examples we use that I say all the time is like, think of an abacus as like horse and buggy, right? We used to take 6 weeks to cross the country. Then we built the rail system, and you did it in a week, right? But no matter how far you go, you reach an ocean. And so then you have air travel. Well, air travel didn't get rid of trains, right? And, so it's an augmentation to computing, not a replacement for what we consider classical computing. And so therefore, there's very specialized tasks. For example, in our first presentation, Andrew helped me out with the physics, and we gave the example of Shor's algorithm. There's 5 steps. Is it an even odd number? Is it a factor 2 coprimes? Let's pick a random number. Only that 4th step needs a quantum computer. Those others, you could write a shell script or an iPhone app or whatever to do so fast, it'd be a waste of time on that resource. So I think that we're still haven't really discovered where these things are going to at first take off. There's definitely people writing papers in finance, definitely writing in chemistry and material science and other stuff, but I don't think that it's found it. Now that doesn't mean it's a developed technology, solution looking for a problem, because it's not. I mean, we know that this will be very valuable, but these aren't computers right now today. They're more like really, really great lab equipment for exploring the quantum landscape. And that's amazing. But we have a little bit to go to get to computer, which of course leads to the question of when I think that'll happen. I actually think in 2023, 2024, that's where we're going to start seeing the inflection point go up on interest and use. And I think it's probably the ion trap machines that get to a higher level of qubits, and that gets the enterprise to buy them, and they'll run into physics problems later. So, superconducting is probably my favorite, but, the idea is here's this green space. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. I mean, they're putting their claims out in press releases, but we don't know. I mean, maybe annealers will come back, and it's the work Andrew used to do at USAA and others will be like, maybe it's quantum inspired. Maybe it is a superconducting circuit or a topological one, as Microsoft wants. But that's what excites me about the field is that, if you don't like how it is, wait around a few minutes, it's probably likely to change, right? Example from the last couple of weeks, D-Wave for years have been saying it's only annealers. They don't like superconducting circuits. Got out at their annual event and said, we're thinking about building some superconducting circuits because those are cool. And that was a big, big reversal, right? So everything, like all the rules, throw them out the window. Everything, who knows? The funding rounds are insane in this space. Psi Quantum just goes at Series D, 450 million. They haven't even released any proof they even have a machine. And I know their plan is to wait and do like a 1 million qubit machine and just be like, boom, we're done. Likewise, you have companies like Rigetti and IonQ that are SPACing. IonQ is now a publicly traded company. They've de-SPACed. Okay, so when you look at all of this, it is literally the Wild West. And an entrepreneur like myself, like Andrew, and the team that we have, which is basically a team of founders, that's where we smell opportunity, and lots of opportunity. And we're only 14 people. We're the least funded company, which means if we had to, we could pivot or move within an area or go very, very fast. And so I think we're still in that kind of I don't want to say it's an exploratory phase, but I think the approach to the company, and this is a little bit of revisionist history, right? We're very honest at the company, but I think part of the approach is that we kind of knew what we were talking about enough to get in trouble. And so now, a couple of years in, we've kind of broken it down into like, there's an experimentation phase, we build a community, we do stuff. Then there's like this evaluation of that work. And then we kind of explore all the options of that. And now we're getting ready in 2022 to move into exploitation, where we have a product to sell. We want to do all the things you think of normal around a startup. But it's a different market than anything I've been in. I always made my career from jumping from market to market. And unfortunately, quantum was maybe a bridge too far. There's a big jump. I mean, I'm kind of holding on with my fingernails on the edge of the quantum cliff, and hopefully we're going to start crawling up on it and breathe a sigh of relief. But it is very, I have a great respect for the science and the physics and stuff. But at the end of the day, the rules of business don't change. Enterprise wants better, faster, cheaper. They want exclusivity. They want all these things. And so our team from the software side is really well positioned to deliver on things that they'll want around this thing we call quantum computing, right? And that's really what our plan has been.
I see. So just curious, so as a software kind of aggregate for all these companies, do you think that you could also benefit from the different types of quantum computing? For instance, some types, the trapped ion may work better than the semiconducting for certain problems based on noise, and your software could test the difference between that. Do you think that gives you an advantage where kind of becoming a center of gravity of all the different types?
So more than likely, that advantage would come from a brand advantage, not a tech advantage. So we own quantumcomputing.com, and clearly there'll be a quantum marketplace, and clearly we've thought of that, right? So I don't think from a tech advantage right now in the development of the industry, that happens at the hardware layer. And that happens at software that's so much deeper in the hardware layer than we want to go. We're a consumer of those things, right? And then we deliver those things out to an audience in a way that they can easily consume and acquire via hardware times on the machines. As far as us using the machines, I hope so. I hope we start writing some of our own software in that area to take advantage of them and distribute it through our marketplace and our ecosystem. I hope that we, but no, we're not trying to like mine Bitcoin or break encryption or really use these machines other than delivering them in a very clean, easy way for other people to consume. I'd love to tell Ewans we're going to do code verification using quantum computing, Andrew, but I think he would kill us both dead on the spot.
I think you'd have a stroke first. You'd probably be all right.
He'd kill us, then have a stroke. Trust me, we would be dead. So, Sarvish, Jonathan, Emily, what are you guys doing here? Yundi, you guys had to come for something, right? Why don't you guys ask some questions? Stop putting it all on Michelle and William.
Do you have any book recommendations?
Yes, by Quantum Computing for Babies at Amazon.com. I have a couple book recommendations. And you know what? This is the 8th one of these I've done this week. And I knew someone would ask for book recommendations. I cannot guarantee the quality of these books, but I have recommended them to people and they have done all right. Quantum Computing, A Beginner's Introduction, right? This is very, very simple. Somebody like Andrew will probably read this and be like, not really. There's also Quantum Computing for Everyone. Chris Bernard, it's a good one. Jack Hidry, who we know has written more of a textbook type of format, Quantum Computing, An Applied Approach. This is the first edition. He just came out with a second edition. And then I actually like Eleanor's book, Andrew, and I don't know if you've read this or what you think about this one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
But this one I actually recommend, which is Quantum Computing, A Gentle Introduction. If this book had come out before we started the company, I might not be doing quantum computing.
Eleanor's book is real good. She's a quantum researcher at NASA.
Yeah, and
I've known her a long time. She's cool.
And I personally recommend her. I mean, out of all, like Jack's book is good too. They're all fine to help you with the thing. The most interesting one that I've seen is by, and I'm gonna try to not murder it, Gosta Fernkratz, which is a new book on the quantum internet that I picked up. It's on Springer, but it's through MIT Press. And that's interesting because I also want people to understand that it's not just about quantum computing. It's about quantum sensors and quantum internet, really quantum mechanics coming in to all of these different areas of things that we may use every day. So, those are some, Jonathan, hopefully those are some decent book recommendations for you, sir.
Thank you. Very, very broad, and I'm surprised you had them all right next to you.
Prepared. I do a lot of these, Jonathan.
Okay.
So any other questions? Austin, I see you just joined. Erica, feel free to ask questions if you have any. You can we're just having a conversation, guys. You can just spit them right out.
I have no real crazy questions, but like, what's your kind of day-to-day life kind of thing? And also, like, can I have a chicken nugget?
Yeah, I wish. Those chicken nuggets are delicious. We put our office next to a bar, which is always a good plan for a startup.
Oh, wow.
But they also have a good kitchen. I dig it. We eat there way too much, as Andrew will tell you. So if you're here, yes, you can absolutely have a chicken nugget. We share everything at Strangeworks family style. But the day-to-day, so I wake up about 5 or 5:30 every day, and I try to get ahead of my email for about an hour until my kids wake up and I take them to school. And then I schedule all my now I injured my foot, so I haven't done this lately, but I schedule all the phone calls where I don't have to be on video between 7 and 10. And so from like 7 to 9, while I'm taking those, I try to go walk to try to be healthy while I'm on those calls. And then I get in the office around between 9 and 10, on most days. And then it's, insanity. A lot of events like this, a lot of pitching venture investors, a lot of working with Andrew on pitching partners and stuff. And that goes to 6 or 7 at night. I go home, I give the kids a bath, and I go back to work with my designer, Casey and I see this. As Andrew's like, man, go easy on Casey. It's like we only seem to be able to get together like between 8 and midnight or 2. And then by the time I'm up that late, there's already calls, that I can do overseas, and sometimes I have and sometimes I want. Watch something on YouTube, chill out, shower and go to bed and repeat the next day. For the last few weeks, I've been traveling around the world. I had no Delta status 7 weeks ago, and now I'm almost Diamond status. So that's 125,000 miles. And I've got probably 100,000 of those in the last, 2 months or so. So, it can be grueling, but normally, Emily, it's just sitting here working, talking to people, doing whatever I can to drive the business forward, right? I mean, my job isn't to lead these guys. My job is to work for Andrew, to work for Justin, to work for David, to support them in the stuff they need to do to build value. So maybe Andrew needs me to come in on a partner call and play the role of founder or CEO, and I'm so glad to be here. Or maybe Steve needs me to have a conversation with a partner where there's something that's not so great and he needs somebody else to be the bad guy or to be the authority. Or maybe Dave and I are doing legal stuff, or Justin and I are talking about the future of the product and the architecture. So that's the part I love about my job as a founder, is getting to touch all of those areas of the business and being able to help and support with all of those areas.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then I guess one more question, I feel like this is kind of like a question that like a lot of people get asked. So I'm sorry if like you've been asked this before and it's kind of boring, but I guess if you could because it sounds like you've done like a lot like to get to this point. And so if you could was there like something that you would like tell yourself, like some kind of obstacle that like you could like be like, hey, this is going to happen to you, or like this is something that's going to be a tough part, like would you is there anything you would basically tell them?
So time travel, questionable subject to begin with. However,
fair enough.
If it was possible, I would not go back and tell my younger self anything. Because one, I think that's bullshit. I think I'm only here because of all of the trials I passed through. And two, that would be most likely, like I could end up working at a bakery or something, right? Like who knows? If I went back and it's like, you're gonna have this career in tech and it's gonna be all this stuff, I'd probably be like, by the way, you're gonna do like 7 weeks, almost 100,000 plus miles, and it's gonna be horrible, and you're gonna sleep on planes and get food poisoning and all of this. I mean, I might, if I went and talked to my younger self, I might actually talk myself out of getting to this point. So I don't think I would do that. I think let's just leave it as it is. But general advice for startups, right? If you're asking what would I tell you, I have a ton of those things. Startups, a very simple 4-rule system for startups. Use it up, wear it out, make do or do without. Period. That's running a startup. You're never going to have the money. You're never going to have the resource. There's always going to be a fire. If you're not comfortable with that, startups are not the thing for you, because that is it. It is stress and trial, and you're trying to manufacture a diamond. And the only way for you to do that is the pressure, right? And it's an immense amount of pressure. And it's a lot of fun too, right? I think everybody should be running their own company. I'm a firm believer in that. But at the end of the day, it's extremely hard. Startups are always in 1 of 2 phases. They're struggling or they're out of business. So thank God you're struggling. Stick to those rules. Use it up, wear it out, make do or do without. And remember that being a founder is like being on an airplane, right? You put your mask on first before you can help those around you. And you always need to know where the nearest exit is. And it could be behind you. I know tons of entrepreneurs that have turned down buyout offers only to go back 7 months later or a year later and be like, hey, you know what? Actually, this is harder than I thought. We would now like to sell the company. And by the way, that gives the acquirer an advantage, right? In the negotiation and so on and so forth. But the rule on not having any resources, the rule on realizing you're always going to be struggling, those are probably the 2 most important things that you could remember. And I probably would tell my younger self that.
I see. Thank you. One last fun question. What are your thoughts on the many worlds theory? Because like you kind of mentioned like the whole back in time.
I mean, I want the Marvel universe to be real. I don't know, but that'd be great. But then think about like what that does for your self-esteem. Like, so Jet Li did a movie years and years ago called The One. Has anybody ever seen that? Have you seen that, Andrew? Right? And so like, as he kills other versions of himself, the bad version, then he gets stronger, like superpowers. So like, that's cool, but probably not something realistic. And as far as the mini world thing, wouldn't that cause a lot of insecurity? Like right now I can be like, I'm the best Whurley I can be. But what if there were an infinite amount of Whurleys and they were cooler? Like they were like Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or, Ron Jeremy. I don't know. I'm just saying like, like maybe maybe that's not something I want to discover. But do I want it to be true? I think it would be amazing. And I think it would do more for commerce than we could possibly imagine with all these different societies that had evolved at different speeds. It would be super interesting from a social engineering construct, from an economics view, from all these things that people don't talk about when they talk about multi-worlds, right? They talk about a whole bunch of stuff. They don't necessarily talk about like, whoa, would they sell us shit? Would we have a peace treaty with them? Like, would there be an interdimensional war like Fringe? Like, it's a fascinating concept, but, I mean, my guess is as good as yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm going to call Andrew out. Andrew, since you are technically the physicist, what do you think of the multi-worlds theory? And also, Emily, out of respect, I'm going to eat 1 nugget for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I managed to escape grad school without GR, so I'm gonna pass on this question. But one thing about what Will said earlier, we do have copies of Quantum Computing for Babies. Might be a little bit beneath your guys' level, but if you've got little brothers, sisters, nieces, nephews, just hit me up on Discord. I'm happy to send you guys one, or drop by the office during the week.
I'll sign one for any of you, and we'll get it to you.
Yeah.
We know it's below your level. It's just kind of cool, and like you said, you can give it away to actual babies.
I got a big pile, right?
Oh, I thought Andrew was like, and I'm done. See you later, guys.
So, I mean, we can run through it. I can read it to you if you want real quick. See, there's a ball. It can be red or blue. All right. So 1 bit of information, 8 bits make a byte, blah, blah, blah. Okay.
And
did y'all make that?
Yes, Chris Ferry
Yes,
and
we did.
Whurley.
Okay.
And I got to be a technical editor, so
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so my contribution, I'm very proud of my contribution, was that, you know, when you're manipulating data with a quantum computer, what you get back out is only ones and zeros, right? Halevos
And so,
theorem. So
for,
that was my contribution right there.
that was his contribution. So in the chat, if you're ever curious, the book has gotten ridiculously popular. I just posted a link to Senator Jackie Rosen, who, as our first episode of her new, hey, I'm in Congress, you know, I'm in the Senate, and I understand tech. She reads Quantum Computing for Babies. And I love her, but it's weird.
Cool. Well, my talk should only take about 20 minutes, and it's really more of a conversation like Will, but I do have a few slides. Michelle, is it cool if we just jump in?
Yeah, let me go ahead and enable. Oh, I think you can already share, so all right.
Okay, cool.
I'll transition to Andrew now and stop the Q&A, but thank you.
One second, let me get my slides here. Where are my slides? Here we go. All right. Well, I think most of you were on the call with Will, so yeah, just a quick intro. I'm Andrew Ochoa, Director of Partnerships at Strangeworks. We are a quantum computing startup located here in Austin. Just a little bit about my background. I'm only, I guess, a few years removed from you guys, not too many. I did my undergrad at UT Pan American, which is now RGV in South Texas, if you know where that is. PhD from Texas A&M, 2017. Joined Strangeworks after graduating 2018, employee number 6, and sort of the first subject matter expert that Will hired, as he mentioned earlier. And while I was at Strangeworks, you know, like Will said, there's a whole lot to do, and the team was really not a whole lot of people. So I felt like there was a lot more I could be doing, but I didn't know how. So I went back to school and got an MBA. And so in addition to sort of being a physics subject matter expert, I've transitioned to doing all kinds of things like marketing and, you know, strategy. And now that I have sort of the business and physics acumen, I'm now that interface between those two things for Strangeworks. So yeah, just finished in May with an MBA from McCombs. So Michelle reached out. I'm very happy to give back to UT in any way that I can. They've been super cool and helped me out a lot. During my PhD, I had a couple of good papers. My background was in statistical physics, studying spin glasses and optimization problems, and using the things that we've learned in physics to optimize and solve hard problems. So if you were present for Helmut Katzgraber's talk yesterday, him and I can do the same exact things. My, I guess, crowning achievement was a cluster algorithm for spin glasses. It's still the state of the art. In fact, D-Wave just wrote a paper this week where they had to invent a whole new class of problems and metric in order to say their machine was better than my algorithm. So I'm glad they're still angry about it, because that's the most fun that Helmut and I had working on this thing was always quashing D-Wave's claims whenever they came out. So here's our office. We are on the east side on East Cesar Chavez, right in front of Lester Pearl East. That's where Whurley got his chicken nuggets. And just a little bit about the team. Of course, you know, we just heard from Will. He's been very successful in the past. We have 14 people on our team. The majority of them have worked together in the past at previous startups. This is my first startup with Whurley, hopefully not the last. We also have our Chief Science Officer, Cesar. He's based in Germany, in Dusseldorf, and a few other people scattered around in Dallas and Minneapolis. You guys have heard this stuff a lot, so I'll touch very briefly on sort of where quantum computing is today. Limited access. There's not a whole lot of people in the space. There's tons of job openings, and it's really a long-term play. So we don't expect quantum computing to sort of shrink anytime soon. And for a lot of enterprises, it can be very confusing. We're working with one, and I often have at least one call a week with a potential customer where they don't have a team, they don't know where to start, they don't know which hardware to buy, and so Strangeworks tries to help enterprises with all of these things. So making it easier to access and buy hardware. We've got our community site to help people start learning, and we hope to be around for a while to help them accomplish that. So now to the part I think most of you guys showed up for, was how do I get a job in quantum, or what does the space look like? I was on a panel, I guess last week, 2 weeks ago.
It was last week.
Yeah, the UMD thing. Thanks, Will. I was on a panel last week where a whole bunch of companies in quantum got together and they did lightning talks about what are the skills they want in potential hires. And so there was a guy from IBM there that had 2 great slides, so I stole them. These are his slides. I know this is being recorded, so hopefully they'll forgive me for just pulling these out. But I thought these were great, and these encapsulated sort of all of these sort of technical skills and some of the professional things. I've added 2 things here, but depending on which path you're interested in, you want to take, this is a great cross section of all of the things that all of the companies find valuable. So everybody else that presented was sort of a subset of these 2 slides. So I thought these would be a great thing to share. And I can share these slides with you in the Discord after the talk. But sort of basic quantum knowledge aside, if you're interested in hardware, familiarity with the tools, both commercial and open source, E&M modeling, Qiskit metal, there's so many levels of the quantum stack, from circuit fab design up to control hardware and implementing those things. And as you move higher and higher in the stack, I mean, there is space for everyone. So, and it's also not, you don't have to be a physics major. There's plenty of professional roles in quantum computing. We still need designers, we still need UX designers, we still need people writing content and technical writers, and there's really a place for everyone in quantum computing because it's so early, and it's such a broad industry that is ramping up today. What else here? Programming skills, obvious, if you want to program quantum computers. Professional skills, these are pretty general, but I like that they're included. At least during my technical degrees, I did not get a lot of career management, but McCombs is the opposite, right? They're career management from day one. So I hope to give you guys a little bit of that info in here too. The biggest thing that we find at Strangeworks is being able to communicate technical information to a non-technical audience. So like I said, we have these calls with new customers that don't know where to start. And so, I don't want to kill them with technical jargon, right? I have to be able to distill technical things into something that's easy to digest. Maybe not on the level of quantum computing for babies, but helping people, get started. And also, if you're joining a company as a quantum computing scientist, there's going to be a lot of people that you work with that are not experts. And so, being cool and not being the stereotypical, arrogant physicist guy in the room is very important. It's broken down a little bit further by roles, or excuse me, by personas. So, and these are sort of job requirements that IBM's taken, but that I've noticed across a bunch of different job postings that I've seen. If you want to be a hardware research scientist, you're going to need the PhD. If you want to be a quantum engineer, master and bachelor is fine in EE or material science. Again, I'm not going to go through each bullet point. I'll share this with you. But I think the most important thing here, and the people that are going to add the most value and probably make the most money, are the ones that are able to translate real world problems into quantum applications. So Helmut touched on this yesterday. Being able to do modeling is really a big bottleneck right now. All these companies trying to get into quantum that don't know where to start, they have problems and they need to get mapped to quantum computers somehow. And so the people that can do that are going to be the most valuable, in my opinion. And so switching gears a little bit, we've got 10 minutes left. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Networking is such a huge thing. I know during my undergrad, being an introvert, I struggled initially with a lot of networking, but really has been the most valuable thing for me that I've learned over, the course of my academic career and professional career. Quantum is collaborative. These are the places to meet people. Quantum Twitter is really cool. I think Will would agree. There's a ton of experts on quantum Twitter. John Preskel's on there. You've probably read his notes if you have any interest in quantum computing. A lot of the startup founders are on there. It's the easiest way to connect with experts, ask questions, share memes. There's a really good quantum memeing, I think is the handle. Quantum memes for QMA complete teens or something like that. One of their memes is here on the right, one of my favorites. LinkedIn's another great place. Conferences are super important as you are, working with your research advisor or whomever, ask if you can visit these conferences. Most departments have funds set aside to send students to conferences, so reach out to your department. I've listed the big ones. APS March meeting is huge. There's always quantum stuff going on. IEEE Quantum Week was just last week. Q2B is a big one coming up. That's Quantum 2 Business that our Qiskit does. The Women in Quantum Summits, we've had 4 of them in like a year. I'm not particularly sure of the cadence, but I am sure that another one is probably coming up very soon. Quantum Tech is a good one. There's, I believe, US and European flavors of that one. And then AQC, that's one for adiabatic quantum computing. That's where I met Will and got my networking done, and now I work at a quantum startup. So, when you're thinking about networking, think about who the most densely connected people in your network are. Like, those are the people you want to build relationships with. So for me, probably the first one that you'll have is your research advisor. So for me, that was Helmut. He's very well respected and well known in quantum computing. Lately, it's Will. Will seems to know everybody. I've just walked in on him while he's talking to Barack Obama on an iPad and kind of ignoring him while he does other work. So this is very, very strange.
Hey, we don't want to take him out.
But the thing that was definitely most valuable in my career was finding that mentor, finding that person that can help you realize your potential, right? And doesn't accept anything less than your best. Networking is something that is hard to do if you start late. So really put in the time now. McCombs, one of the career management tips that they gave us was spend an hour a week networking. Reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while and just see how they're doing. How's work going? I'll scroll through my phone and say, oh man, I haven't texted my former colleague when I was in grad school, Amin, what is Amin up to these days? Oh, you're at Microsoft now. What are you working on? Okay, cool. I'll keep that in mind so that, I can reach out, or Amin can reach out to me if he needs something. So definitely maintain those relationships with the people that you met. And then finally, so don't wait till you need a job to sort of start thinking about career management. Again, it's something that's very hard to do if you wait till the last minute. So start developing, your professional persona now. Make your LinkedIn, polish it up. Don't just have, your blank profile pic. Have a website. My website is quantum.af. It's kind of fun. Kind of fun URL. There's nothing there. But so for those of you computer science people, maintain your GitHub. Work on your CV. Every time I do a talk like this one, I add it to my CV. Just start building it up, because you want to be able to show not just what you can do, but what you've done. I already touched on Twitter. Places to look for jobs. Of course, LinkedIn is huge. Set a job alert for quantum computing. I've got one just to keep tabs on who's hiring who. Try and scope out other companies' plans. But for example, I've got my job alert set. 8 jobs posted yesterday, and I get an alert pretty much every day. So there's plenty of jobs, and they run the gamut from internships to senior level positions. So start looking at job posts and figure out what you like. When I transitioned from subject matter expert to director partnerships at Strangeworks, my boss Steve had me write my job description. So it was a lot easier, since I had already looked at a lot of other job descriptions, to sort of build out the role that I wanted. So the more of these you see, the more you learn what you like, what you don't like, and you'll be in a better position to start applying for those jobs when the time comes. Other places to look for quantum jobs, there's the QEDC, the Quantum Economic Development Consortium. They have a place for jobs that's relatively up to date. I think LinkedIn's probably slightly better. A good place for internships is Chicago Quantum. They have a page that lists out internships for both graduate and undergraduate students. And Quantum Computing Report is another useful website that tells you, it has a lot of good information about all the different companies in quantum. I think there's little blurbs about all of them on there. As well as jobs and other things. I'll let you check it out. And finally, most people get jobs through the network. So for example, my job at Strangeworks was through my network. Will and I both have a mutual friend that we were able to connect through. Before I worked at Strangeworks, I was at USA briefly. That came through Helmut's network. So I haven't actually applied for a job in a sort of shotgun approach that a lot of people do, because I've been able to utilize my network to get that foot in the door. So don't sleep on your network, I guess, is the theme of my talk. And that's about it. So I'll post these slides. I know there was a lot of stuff in here. I'll post them on the Discord here shortly. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrew. I think that was really helpful general advice in terms of searching for internships. I think networks is one thing that you never really hear about as an undergrad.
Yeah.
About applying, right? But never the networks.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
networks are so huge. I really can't overstate it enough. And Whurley will tell you, like, he's built his career on networks.
Well, I wish I had it. I wish I'd have done a better job of it. I mean, Andrew's, right now we're out raising money, and I've been telling the guys, turns out that money isn't about the company or the founder. It's social. Our first round came from a guy that met me at a quantum computing conference, and a year and a half later was looking to invest, and I was the person he knew, right? Like, the social aspect of getting a job, getting funded, all of these things. It is literally that life rule you hear. It's not what you know, it's who you know. It is really a combination. You got to know something of value, and then you got to know the people that can help you connect with where to do it. You can't just have the connections and not have any skills, and you can't just have the skills without the connections. Like Andrew's exactly right.
Yeah, and it's something I struggled with, being sort of an introvert and sort of you're more.
I don't see you as an introvert. But...
No, well, I was, right. At least in my opinion, I did zero networking during undergrad. Went to grad school, and I really didn't start networking until like my last 2 years of grad school. But those ended up being like the most valuable work that I had done.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
So you mentioned you also did your PhD in physics as well, and so you have a really good academic track record. And then also you have an MBA, now you're director of partnerships. So how much of both degrees, or I guess your subject matter material, do you utilize in your job now versus kind of an academic track?
Oh, as Andrew's boss, I will jump in on that one and say he uses all of it. Like, he didn't get away from the physics. Like, I'm still, Cesar is in Dusseldorf, Germany. So like after 1 p.m. or whatever, like he's gone. Like, Andrew's the only person I can ask. And at the same time, his MBA is bringing a lot of skills into the partner network we're building and some of the new projects we're doing. So he's getting to utilize both those degrees. Well, I mean, we're leaning on him for both of those. And I'd love to hear, Andrew, what you think.
Yeah. So I've worked with everyone on the team on at least something, modulo some very new hires that we've had recently. And it's, part of my motivation for getting the MBA was I didn't want to get pigeonholed into research roles. It was still, it's still unclear to me some of the timelines in quantum computing. And so just part of it was wanting to have a backup plan. But as time has gone on, I will stay in quantum computing, and find a way to utilize both degrees. They've both been totally worth it.
Oh, awesome.
Did that answer your question? Or?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
yes. I was looking for more perspective because I think I'm on the cusp of deciding what I want to do. I know I have a really big struggle with, I think, impatience in terms of wanting to do things, but also wanting to learn. So
got it. I think the barriers are coming down. There are more colleges and universities now that are offering quantum computing master's degrees. So I think if there were an opportunity, maybe a master's is a good route to just get some of that technical depth without the sort of original research part. I think can be very valuable because really that's the difference in the master's and the PhD, right? Is that whole, write your thesis, do original research. If you do a master's with a thesis option, I that sounds great to me. I mean, I would hire a person that did something like that. But again, like on those IBM slides, if you want to do novel research and that's what you want your career to be, then definitely, there's no escaping the PhD.
So yeah, well, thank you so much. We are, I think, over time. I think it's 3 or 4 if you guys have to go, and I don't want to keep anybody up here, but
I got nothing going on. I can keep answering questions for a little while.
Would you consider getting a third degree?
Yeah, I was debating whether I
What-
wanted to
what
go to
would that-
Dell Medical School or the
What
law
would that
school.
be in, Andrew? Yeah, exactly. What would that be in?
Whatever adds more letters to the end of my name, I think is.
Then you need Esquire. I think Esquire is what
Okay.
I was thinking DDS.
Oh, dentist. No, dentists are so weird. Have you ever met a normal
Actually,
dentist?
Andrew would be an
The
incredibly
worst dentist.
weird, but also not great dentist. Is my I agree
I
with
hate teeth. I hate my teeth. It's just not an appealing job to me. But yeah, MD. I joked with my aunt. It's like, oh, I finished the MBA. I applied to Dell Medical School. She's like, are you serious? Like, are you insane? Do you not have enough student loans? But the trick to student loans is if you're in school, you don't have to pay them. So just, I'm going to keep going to school till I'm 80 and then just die and abandon all of that debt. It's going to be awesome. I saw that thumbs up. Yeah, it's a good plan.
Good strategy. I don't know, I guess one question, like as someone who I think struggles to deeply commit to one discipline for a very long period of time, but is instead
Sure.
focused on adding value back to a community, I guess what would you say in terms of then pursuing like a master's or a PhD in like a field versus, I guess, learning transferable skills that are applicable to a broad range of industries, but maybe not so much focused on kind of the
I think no matter what you end up studying, you have to be able to translate that into transferable skills. It's all about positioning. It's more of an exercise in positioning than, oh, I didn't learn a skill. It's how do you take the things that you have learned and I don't want to say the word embellish because it's pejorative, but convince someone that those skills that you have will fit into the role that you want, right? Yeah, I lost my train of thought. What was the question?
You're good. Oh no, just how do I word this? Yeah, I guess I'm just
Right. So you said you had not commitment issues, but difficulty choosing one path, and that's totally fine.
Andrew, just to point out, those are commitment issues.
Okay. This thing's being recorded, and I know I've already shit the bed a few times.
I know, but it's okay to call it what it is, right? Like
Okay.
you can't choose between one or two paths. You can't commit to one, right? Like it's okay. It doesn't have to have a negative connotation, but it's important to recognize it for what it is.
I think if you find a research advisor that's really flexible, you can sort of scratch those itches of wanting to do different things. So, for example, when I work with Helmut, he would assign research projects, but the ones I really enjoyed were the ones I came up with myself. And yeah, part of going to school and doing your PhD is figuring out what you want to do. So if you feel like you don't have it figured out today, like it's not a big deal. To like 100% everyone is winging it. Like don't believe people that tell you they've got it figured out. Everybody's.
Yeah. I guess I have a good idea. Like the thing I like most is like product strategy, right? And like kind of learning like where value is generated for different businesses. And I feel like that's just very transferable among industries. And so I just think right now the question for me is if I want to do a master's, it's like I wouldn't have time to do that. And that's kind of like my personal passion. So
I mean, there's alternative ways to do your master's. So I did an evening MBA program. I didn't do the full-time program. I did it while working at Strangeworks. That was part of the reason that I did decide to do a master's. One, I only wanted to do it at UT because I felt like if I did it anywhere else, it wouldn't be worth it.
And he had an awesome team that supported him through the process. He was
Yes, that cannot be overstated.
Although I will tell you, he did bribe us with barbecue. So I mean, yeah, in fairness.
Yeah, the barbecue. I spent more money on barbecue than the MBA, I think. But yeah, if your interest is getting out there into the workforce, there's no reason you can't ever go back to school if you feel like that's would add more value to your career. All of the people that I went to school with, we were a cohort of 65 MBA students in the evening MBA program, and everybody had careers, across industry verticals. I mean, there were people doing marketing, there were people in oil and gas, there were people in law. We had a nurse that was getting an MBA so he could manage more nurses or something. But he ended up going to work for the FBI. It was very strange. Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse to stop learning. Like, if you want to, like, just go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you. That was really good advice.
Yeah, sure.
I had a quick question, possibly for both of you, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
I was just curious how you see the Austin kind of quantum scene growing, because I remember when I came here I'm actually originally from Kansas, so I came here and then got interested in quantum and saw there was a quantum startup in Austin. I was like, oh, that's awesome. I was just curious how you see Austin growing in the future in this field.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, UT brought in Scott Aronson. That sort of, I don't want to say got the ball rolling, but it was definitely a big benefit to the area. I'll leave it to Will to talk about startups or in Austin in general.
There's two hardware startups going now that, one in the photonics area, one that wants to do superconducting. One's a spin out of UT, one's actually from Houston and moving here. And then, you know what, I mean, here's what's great about quantum. And I mean, it literally the best thing about quantum is that every time I've started a startup in Austin, 3 months in, as soon as it looks like it's cool, there's like 8 other basically copycat startups, right? That's one of the things. Look, I've been in Austin for 30 years. But that's one of the things we suffer from worse than any other tech scene, which is like, I'm also doing that. And what I find completely amusing and kind of refreshing is jump into quantum and everybody was like, ooh, that sounds like a nightmare sci-fi project. No thanks. And there hasn't really been a lot. But now that it's getting more popular, you're going to start seeing more. And I was just at the Quantum Investment Summit in Maryland talking to 3 or 4 startups that are considering a move to Austin. And I'm actually pitching them on this because for a new industry, you need density. And so right now you have, what Julie Lazar is doing up at Maryland. You have the stuff going on at Caltech. You have New York scene. You have these kind of disparate scenes. But we don't have a Waterloo in the US, right? Like if you go to Canada, it's like Waterloo. That's where quantum happens. And so, given that Elon Musk has moved all of Tesla and all his other companies are moving here, and Jim Breyer, who was the Series A guy in Facebook, has now moved his investment fund here, and the Formation 8 guys, Joe Lonsdale's moved here. Now you're getting that kind of gravity of investment. It's easier to attract the quantum companies, and it'd be great to have them here. And look, people will quit us and go work there and vice versa. But that's healthy, that density for a scene. So right now, not a lot going on to be excited about. I mean, end of next year, I could see there being 3 or 4 companies ranging from 5 or 6 people to 30 or 40 people that are all based here. And I think that would help because then if you had that, they could work with Scott and UT and work on programs for quantum. And, it kind of is a self-fulfilling prophecy. But, not a lot going on right now, but there's definitely a lot of interest. I mean, I was just with Rob Hayes, who's the CEO of Atom Computing. And he was asking, like, what if I would just got crazy and I moved to Austin and I was like the first hardware company there? And think about what he's saying. And think about what people are saying, right? He's not the only one that I've talked to. And he's probably never going to do that, right? He's kind of teasing me. There's people who have had legitimate conversations about that because it's a very, very respected tech scene that's becoming like the gravity well for engineers from around the world. And it now has the finance. So it's not a bad place to be trying to do a quantum startup, in my opinion.
Startups aside, I mean, IBM has a quantum team in Austin. There's a couple other companies that are hiring people to do quantum. PayPal, I saw.
Dell
That was a huge one
in Austin, and just released some quantum software about a month ago, or maybe a little longer. So you're starting to see stuff happen. I think that's going to attract more startups. And then a lot of the big companies are going to say, well, quantum really, look, there's a couple hundred people that matter worldwide. There's maybe a few thousand people that are even remotely interested in it. And it's an industry that's going to need tens of thousands of people over the next 20 years. And so I think there's a really good ground floor opportunity in quantum and all.
Yeah, you guys are already ahead of the game doing, quantum hackathons and stuff. I didn't do any of this stuff. So you guys will catch up to me pretty quick. I'm sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
How do
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
so how do like interviews for quantum jobs differ from interviews for like regular software engineering jobs?
That's a good question. It depends on where you go. I learned from my colleagues doing the MBA. A few of them applied to Amazon, and I remember helping Helmut through his whole Amazon interview process for Amazon Quantum. And just every company's different. I mean, it's so hard. My interview at Strangeworks was us going to Ruth's Chris, I think one evening with with me and with our CTO and our VP of engineering, and just having a conversation about things we could do in quantum together, and that's how I ended up with a job at Strangeworks.
Yeah, and just know, like, in the startup world is not just about quantum. If you're interviewing at a startup and they want, they're like giving you technical reviews and all these tough questions about physics and stuff, that's probably not a great indicator. Like, usually, like, we found Andrew, I was interested in him, I checked him out. I know Helmut's reputation. I know he spoke well about Andrew. I met Helmut at the same time as Andrew in Tokyo. And it was more, I guess my point is, at a startup, it's more about the people and the culture than it is the skills in the early days of it. You need skills. Obviously, we need physics skills at the company with what we're trying to do. Obviously, you need software development from the two Justins he just mentioned. But if you have a 7-person company and 2 of those people are assholes, or 2 of those people don't get along, or they cause drama or whatever, I mean, you can kill things, before you even get anywhere. So, for me, interviewing is like, there's more of an assumption on the skills. Like, we can check you out. Like, it's great, especially if you're a software developer, right? We can go to GitHub and see your code and read your code. Like, we have advantages in hiring. Quantum being a little different, but at the same point, quantum people are going to be very, very well paid, because it's going to be years before we have enough people in the marketplace, which means the only way companies are going to be able to compete is to offer you more, for doing that. And we already see people, I mean, we're not going to name anybody, Andrew, but we know 3 or 4 people who have moved jobs 2 to 5 times in the time that Andrew and I have been working together. Yep. So it's a very interesting, very different area. If you're going to be making the hardware, you probably should expect that to be a very technical interview from a physics perspective, and really good. You're writing the software, probably a little lighter, right? You're a salesperson, go sell anything, right? Everybody's desperate to start doing that. So the level of scrutiny you get in the interview process is going to depend directly on the job, but also on the maturity of the company and the maturity of the founders. I think a very mature founding team is much more likely to give someone a break and try them out and then fire them later if they don't work out, rather than be put so much scrutiny on the process up front, because you're moving so fast. We can't take 6 weeks to interview somebody, or 10 weeks. And then we're in a very highly competitive market. If I wait 8-10 weeks to hire somebody, Amazon will come in and offer them 3 times as much as my startup can and grab them up. So it's just a very different environment right now. I think that's important to know.
I see. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys?
I had just like a technical question. So I was trying to use Pygame to like, I'm making a game or something on Strangeworks, and I couldn't really figure that out. Do you have like any idea how to do that or set that up?
Run me through what you're trying to do again.
I'm trying to use Pygame to like kind of make like a game for it, but I'm not really sure like how to get the thing to show up on my computer, but also on Strangeworks. Like, I stopped and I'm just doing it on VS Code now. But
Yeah, so the Strangeworks environments are pretty locked down. I mean, we don't want you
Yeah.
mining Bitcoin on there or anything, right?
That's funny. I was about to say he's the guy Justin's worried about building a game on the platform or whatever. No, yeah, it's pretty locked down. So probably VS Code is probably a better way to go to experiment around that. We've tried to lock it down because what we can't have is somebody come on the open free platform, like Andrew said, mining Bitcoin or doing whatever. And we have to be really careful about all the security stuff. But I think VS Code is probably the right way for you to go on that for sure.
sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, our community platform is really more about sort of dipping your toes in quantum. You know, very simple simulator experiments, and then I think by the end of the year we'll have our SDK released, so you can pip install Strangeworks and use it locally in your environment. And then at that point, you can do whatever you want, right?
I'm happy to say it'll be sooner than that.
Okay. Well,
So, but yeah, it's definitely that'll definitely give you something you can do on your local machine.
yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So yeah, I am on the Discord, so if you guys ever have any questions or want me to look at your resume and give you tips, whatever you need, definitely hit me up, or you can email me. It's just Andrew@Strangeworks. If you do want to book, yeah, just drop us a note or come by the office. There's usually somebody there Monday through Friday, and just tell them we promise you a book, and they'll get you one.
Well, I think awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming and doing this Q&A session. I think it's great that we're getting more involved with the local startup here in Austin. I'd love to, keep forming that relationship with you guys to see what we can do to contribute from.
Yeah, you guys are welcome to come. And, Andrew, maybe we should buy barbecue and invite everybody by.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I think one of our officers actually brought up at some point doing kind of a tour of Strangeworks, maybe if you guys are open to that. I was going to leave that for another conversation.
It's a big empty office with Andrew and myself and Justin in it. So, but yeah, you guys we're lonely. You guys can come by anytime.
For sure.
Yeah, it might not.
Yeah, the office is super boring. Like there's
we don't have any quantum computers here. It's all software. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Just
it's everybody's MacBook is at the office. That's pretty much what it looks like. But yeah, definitely keep us posted on what the club's doing. If you guys need any kind of support, again, I'm happy to reach out to people to get more speakers, or, if you guys decide, man, we really want to learn about trapped ion next month, tell me and I can reach out to IonQ or Honeywell and get somebody on the phone for you guys. We're happy to support UT.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'll definitely
sure.
stay in touch with all our endeavors and we're planning on doing. So
cool.
Yeah, I think Whurley, I'm talking with you on November 8th, so we'll catch up pretty soon. But
You're
all right,
on mute,
thank you
Will.
so much.
Thank you guys so much.
All right.